Okay, so I have a few announcements to go through. Then we'll go through industry research and best practices research, and then last spring is the first time that I put together the quiz for this class. So there's things that I covered in more detail in the spring that I noticed that I may or may not have been clear about last week. So the last thing I want to do today is go through a few things that will be on the quiz next Monday, and make sure that that I give you the right information. Okay. So first of all, now that I have the groups all organized, I have a map of everybody's faces, with the exception of 3 of you. And I don't see, is Chase, I don't see Chase right now. Oh, what are you doing there, man? You're supposed to be back with the...
It was all taken.
That's okay. That's fine.
I'm within earshot.
That's fine. Okay, so I have pictures of everyone with the exception of Jing, Chase, and Paige.
That's not a headshot.
Huh? Yep. Huh?
Oh, we're all the same group. Yeah, let's take it. I'll see you there.
Okay, hang on one second. I do, but I don't know, the OCD side of me, it's the only 3 pictures I don't have. Everybody else's picture is in the student ID system. Okay, hang on. Sorry. Yes, I do already know you. However, no. I have to touch the table 5 times sometimes. We all have our little isms. Okay, Chase, lean in. Ready? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so it's a funny story. So Vanessa is in my other class as well. Not Sermano, Gardea. I'm getting there. And Nathan's in my other class in the morning. Who else is in? And Maria isn't. What? I thought Jacqueline was, but she's not here. I don't see her. Oh, there you are. It's Grecia that's not here. Okay, so you guys know the story of the face map and my trip to Denver. The rest of this class doesn't know. So, as you know, I was going to Denver to see my friend Lara from Croatia, and her flight got in at 11 in the evening, and mine got in at 4:30. So I sat down in the lounge in the airport to get work done while I'm waiting, and evidently, and I was working on this map right here, and evidently it is not common for people to sit in the lounge of the Denver International Airport, making pages with people's pictures on them, because I couldn't get more than 10 minutes of work done, and somebody new would come up and ask me what I'm doing. So I didn't finish this map in the whole time from 4:30 until 11 that I was there, because somebody else kept asking me what I'm doing, and and everybody had a different guess as to what it was. And I think the craziest guess was there were these 2 women who were on their way for a girls' weekend in New Orleans. Yes, thank you. And one of them came up to me and asked, what are you doing? And I explained I'm making a map of everybody's faces in this class. And she said, I figured it was something legit like that, but from far away it looked for sure like you're, what is it? Thank you, that you're a pedophile. And then you're putting down pictures of everybody's, all the kids in your class, which I kind of am, but not because I'm a pedophile, because I want to memorize everybody's pictures. So I now have this, so I'm going to try to see how far I can get by memory, and then I'm going to have to look at the map again. But within, hopefully by next week, I'll be able to remember everybody's face without actually having to look at the map anymore. So Leanne's not here. So Here, I'm putting that there so you guys can see I'm not looking. But I'm going to go. Oh wait, Gracia, you're here. Cool. And then Jacqueline, Silvino, Richard. That I knew, but I'm going to admit Melina. Sorry. Okay. And then Joshua should be sitting next to Nathan, but he's not there. And then Megumi? Macy? No, hang on. It's Walls is the last name, right?
Yeah.
Shelby.
Yeah.
I didn't look. It's Walls, right?
Yeah.
And then Hema? Abby? Abby or Abigail? Okay. And you're one row in front of your group, but that's cool. And then damn it. Javier, Miguel, Spencer.
No.
What? Miguel, Javier, Spencer. Okay, sorry. I had you pasted in the opposite direction on my map. Okay, not looking again. Maria, Alyssa, right? It's your group, man.
Sprechen Deutsch.
Ja, das weiß ich, aber das hilft nicht, was dein Name angeht.
Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Last name also starts with a B, right? Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay, sorry, man. Brian. Chase, and then Vanessa Sermeno Gardea. Rainier. Vincent. And hang on. Well, Kaya. Damn it. Rochelle. Not Rachel, Rochelle. Sorry. I'm sorry. And then Majid. Paige. Jing. Sabrina? Yes! And then, hang on. Tamayo, right? Okay, Tamayo's last, what's her first name again? Susie, that's it. Susie Tamayo. And then Hernan. And Christian. And Samuel. And hang on. Damn it. Jonathan. Okay, I was close. So I think the only people missing are Leanne and Joshua, right? Did I miss anybody else? Yes, no? Okay, cool. So I'm going to I think with just two people, I'm not even going to bother to pass out the list. If Leanne or Joshua shows up, I will recognize that they did. If not, then we're good. Okay, so hopefully within the next week or so, I will not forget Jonathan and no, Rochelle. I know, but every class there's at least one group that I have a mental block with, and this class it's going to be the crowdfunding group. Damn it. Miguel, Javier, Spencer. Okay, I'm going to work on it. So anyway, that's going on. The couple of announcements. Hernan, I just got your LinkedIn invitation, so actually that was on my to-do list, but I'll go in and update the grade soon. I just saw that email a little while ago. Chase, I still need you to send me a copy of your.
Yeah, I meant to do it. It turns out, I don't know if you want the long story. Basically, I just got this computer. I didn't have Office installed on it. I think that's why it was showing up as key. So I got Office today, And I emailed it to you. You still may not be able to read it, but I'm going to install the Office, and I should be able to do it as a Word document.
That's fine. I'm not in a hurry. Just make sure to send it to me.
Yes.
And if you'd already sent something, I haven't cleaned up my inbox in the last hour or two. So.
Well, I sent it thinking you may be able to see it, not with all the others the way as I posted it originally, but I think it still might show up as Keynote. So.
It may. I'm not sure. I'll send it again, and eventually we'll get it done.
Okay.
Okay. The third thing before I go into the lecture for the day is I finally have our podcasts posted, which will be useful for the quiz next week. So if we go into Blackboard here. Okay, so in the information section, got the syllabus, the lecture agendas, the toolbox retention. This is the study guide for the quiz next Monday. We'll get back to that as the last thing we go over today. But I've got a new thing here at the bottom, podcasts. So if you click on this Word document here, that will open up a Word document with links to all of the podcasts that I have done. So unfortunately, I was still on the bleeding edge of technology for the introductory session. I didn't get that one recorded, but there's nothing on there. There's nothing from there except the general fun that we had that day. That's important. There's nothing on the quiz, so there's no podcast for the first lecture. The 21st, I still need to go I have to convert the file from one format to another and post it. But basically the exact same information I went over in 490 as well. And that one's already posted. So I've given you a link to my other class where I went over professional development plans. And unfortunately, that was one of the days where I couldn't get the microphone to work. So this is the link to the video. And then if you look back in Blackboard, there's a Windows media file here, 490 professional development. That's the audio. I had to record it on 2 separate tracks. So everything else, the 23rd, this is the stuff that Vincent was so kind as to record on his tablet. And then the 28th and the 30th, these are the 2 that are relevant for the quiz. 28th is everything that I did for web development and then product service development, so all the stuff on patents and trademarks, and I forgot a parentheses there at the end. And then everything on customer acquisition, guerrilla marketing, and so forth is on the 30th there. So if you just click on the link, it'll take you to a YouTube video that has the whole podcast of the lecture on it now. Going forward, I'm going to try to, as soon as this class is over, go back to my office, convert the file, and post it. It took forever, for whatever reason, I had to go from one format to another, and it takes an hour or two to convert from the format that it records in to a MP4 format, which is what I need to post on YouTube. I may actually do that when I get home, as when I go for my exercise walk at the end of the day, I'll let the thing roll. Otherwise, I'm going to be sitting around twiddling my thumbs in my office. But I'm going to try by the end of the day to post the podcast for today, and then the same thing on Wednesday. So by Thursday, at the very latest, you've got podcasts of all 4 of the lectures that the quiz is on. And the quiz, basically, instead of coming to class next Monday, you're going to take the quiz online. You can do it any time during the day. You don't necessarily have to do it from 5:15 to 7:20. And then I'll send you an email. I want you to go in and give me any kind of feedback on what's going well with the class so far, what you'd like me to change, so that I have enough time to make edits and improvements into how that I teach a class going forward. So that'll be next Monday. I completely lost my train of thought. Where was I? Someone?
We're going to do suggestions for next time class.
Yeah, before that.
The quiz.
Quiz, yep.
We don't have to take it at 5:15.
Yep. and then the podcasts. Damn, there was something else I wanted to get. Anyway, I'm just going to go into the lecture. There was something else that I wanted to mention. I can't remember what it was now. Okay, so that's your link to all the podcasts. That's what it was going to be. So I hope to have the podcast for today posted by the end of the day today, and the same thing for Wednesday. I wanted to give you guys an update on like grading stuff. So basically, you are waiting for feedback from me on your LinkedIn profiles and your professional development plans. Basically, I now have everybody's LinkedIn profiles, and I just need a readable copy from Chase. And somehow I lost Leanne's professional development plan. I got to find it, but otherwise I got everything. As I said to the other class, like if I average 10 minutes per LinkedIn profile and 10 minutes per professional development plan, which is actually pretty speedy, that would be 20 minutes per student in this class times 35 students, which is, let's see, 700 minutes, I think. Is that right? So there's 60 minutes in an hour. That means I would need 11 hours and 40 minutes if I'm just like churning like a machine. So I've got time blocked off this like all day Saturday after I go for my exercise walk. I'm like making comments on LinkedIn profiles and professional development plans, both for this class and for the other class. I will go through them as fast as I can. I don't want to shortchange you on my advice. The whole point of having you do this was so that I can help you have a more marketable image online and give you some good suggestions on how to actually get to where you want to go with your career. So you don't have to do anything else until I get back to you with my next steps, and it's not due until the end of the quarter. Okay? That being said, I want to get you feedback as soon as I can, because the sooner I get it to you, the sooner your profile looks better online, the sooner you're able to reach out and do more networking, the more I can help you with your career before the class is over with. So I'll try and get to it as fast as I can. That's the situation right now. And then I also have some time blocked off tomorrow, the second half of the day. First half of the day tomorrow, I'm doing grading for the other class and some stuff they had to turn in. And then the second half of the day, I'm going to reach out to various companies, pin down some more details on your projects that we're going to start working on, kick things off the tail end of next week. So I'll get back to you about that as well. Just wanted to give you an update on what I haven't forgotten about everything you've turned in. It's just going to take me a little while to go through it all. Okay? Any questions about all that before I go to the lecture for today? Okay. So don't save. I'll fix that later. Course documents. And today's materials are all under industry research and best practices research. So if we start with industry research here. There's a couple of main concepts that I want you to be familiar with. One of them, there's two useful ways of looking at things that are going to change the future of your industry and what the structure of your industry is, and they're useful tools for analysis. They also they tend to come as part of analyst reports that have a whole lot of other useful information in them as well. So they're a good starting point to search for general information about things impacting your industry. So this circle is kind of a nice description of how they impact each other. The first thing I'm going to talk about briefly is driving forces of change in an industry, which are basically things that are impacting the long-term, things that are impacting how the industry is going to change in the future. Depending on the situation, I've given a lot of examples from the music business, basically the advent of really simple high quality MP3 technology combined with a change in demographics and societal values. Basically, like, consumers of music these days, like, would rather spend their leisure money on, gaming or online subscriptions, cable subscriptions. There's a lot of other things you can get more bang for your buck for than just buying a CD. So the tastes have changed. Like, basically, there's been a huge shift of everybody that was born, like, everybody was born in the the 90s, like, becoming consuming adults now. It's a ginormous, like, boom of Generation Y, which changes the entire, like, demographic scape, and then technology changed the industry a lot. So those things have totally impacted the structure in the inside of the music business. So 10 years ago, the barriers to entry were a lot higher in the music business. It's really easy to get into the music business now because technology has made the cost a lot lower. In terms of substitute products as well, because of changes in societal values, there's a whole lot more substitute products for the entertainment that you get by listening to music of one type or another. There's a lot more competing substitute products than there used to be, and those changes out here impacted the changes on the inside. If I move forward from this picture, when you're assessing what is an important driving force of change in your industry, it's important to ask yourself, is it going to make demand for the product go up or down? Is it going to make competition more or less intense? And is it going to make the basic business model more or less profitable? If you answer yes with exclamation points to all three of those, it's probably a really important driving force to consider. If you answer yes to one of them, marginally important. And if you answer yes to all three, but not without much enthusiasm, maybe it's also not as important. But these are sort of your red lights or warning flags. If something definitely is going to have these three impacts on the future of your industry, it's a really important thing to take note of and deal with going forward in the company. So I've given you a couple of good sources here for finding all kinds of useful information about your industry, starting by looking for driving forces of change, moving on from there. So something I wanted to make sure to focus on more specifically here so that we don't miss it. This list right here, it's important to know where you can find industry information. Hint for the quiz. And there's four, here at Cal State, there's really four main sources. First Research Industry Profiles is a database that has profiles on pretty much on most major industries out there. It's a database that we subscribe to here at our library. So I've got a link directly to it there in the PowerPoint. If I wanted, for example, to find a report on the music industry, I just simply type in music, and it'll pull up a whole bunch of reports basically written by firms on Wall Street about everything you possibly could want to know about trends impacting the future of the music business. So if we just pull up the full text article here, you can see it's 17 pages worth of overview about the business, talking about some of the major competitors, and talking about all kinds of forecasts and trends, challenges facing the future of the business. linking this back to small business management, these are really valuable reports, and honestly, like, even though I think I know the music business relatively well at this point, just reading the little paragraph about new revenue models, I usually always see something about, like, if nothing else, seeing merchandising underlined again by somebody else just reinforces to me that, like, I personally, if I were to go back into doing more stuff in the music business, have not been thinking about merchandising enough lately. Just going in and seeing that there reminds me, oh crap, it's not just about either live event revenues or like the example I gave you guys before, basically publishing rights that you get paid for when your music is used, like in an advertisement on TV or something. In addition to that, there's all kinds of merchandising opportunities that basically, like, package music or package the image of various artists in various ways to help sell other products, usually as a giveaway of some kind. So just reading that again reminds me of stuff that I otherwise would not have spent enough time on. So, but I don't have the time, if I were running my business, to like go out and scour the internet for these things. So a really useful talent of you guys for projects is just being able to go out and know where to find this stuff and download the report, because if somebody doesn't have a subscription to this database, they cost, I don't know, a couple $100 a piece for these reports, I think. So just downloading them, just the fact that you have access through the Cal State subscription is already valuable. And then taking the time to go out and look for a needle in the haystack and find the report that's relevant to that small business, and then read through and say, just take out this paragraph and put it in a one-page summary for the business. That's really helpful, because then the business leader has access to the rest of the document. They can browse through the one-pager quick, get a few ideas that they had not thought of before, and they don't have to take any time and energy to do it. So that's my main point there about searching for information through first research. Hoover's is another potential source where you can find information about different forces affecting the future of an industry. Unfortunately, our access to Hoover's here at Cal State Bakersfield is a bit hobbled compared to what I was accustomed to in Cincinnati. So suffice it to say, if this is a part of your small business project, start here and then contact me, and I can help to find you a more robust access to Hoover's. Starting here, just what you have access to by yourself, the thing to remember is that you need to go into the source directory. Oh crap. Enter in through another portal here. Yeah. So the way that we access Hoover's, which is it's another company that basically does reports all day long about every industry you can imagine. The way that we have access to that at Cal State is via LexisNexis, which is LexisNexis is a search engine that searches all kinds of different databases. In the past, I've suggested that people use it. We'll come back to it again for best practices research at times, but it's also really useful for searching magazine articles and newspaper articles about a certain topic or a certain company. But this is also, it's just a front end, and it searches whatever database you tell it to go to. Does that make sense? So the LexisNexis software is just these search windows, and then it plugs in at the back end to whatever database you tell it to go to. So in order to access Hoovers, you actually have to go to source directory and then click find, and then everything that says Hoovers you want to click on. If you're just interested in industry snapshots, you can just click on that, but basically in order to access the data from Hoovers, which is very useful, we need to go through LexisNexis here on our campus. So after I've clicked all of those, for whatever reason those are grayed out, so I can't click them. That's it. So Hoover, that is not what we want. So everything down to the Hoover 'S we want to click, and these I'm not able to click. So after that, we'll click OK, continue with just those databases, and then we can go in and look up like trucking, for example. So then you can sort of narrow things down with the left-hand side here. So sources by category. So we've got 561 companies that came up. That there's information on individual companies through Hoovers, and then there's some industry information. So specialty trucking, truckload characters, blah, blah, blah. All of these have some basic overview information about that industry. So it tells you some of who the main competitors are, the websites of the industry associations, gives you a basic overview. Hoovers is great for having a standardized structure where, you know, there's an intro paragraph, there's a part about the main competitors in the business, there's a list of the main industry association websites, and you can always depend on Hoovers to find the same kind of information in the same place every time. And they tend to have a pretty extensive list of different types of industries. So, you know, Abigail and Vanessa, when we're talking about transportation, like, you know, the big picture 30,000 foot view is transportation. You know, specialty trucking is different than less than truckload. I mean, less than truckload carriers, when you're actually specifically talking about stuff that is less than a full container full. There's a whole submarket in just shipping like partial shipments, you know. So this is a pretty good source for finding a little bit of information, and leads to overview information, names of main competitors, and links to industry association websites for almost any industry you can imagine. If this becomes a major part of the project you do in this class, like I said, I should be able to help you find access to a more robust front end. Unfortunately, the way that us accessing Hoovers through LexisNexis is kind of it's a little bit like inefficient the way, but we paid for the like rinky-dink subscription here rather than the full subscription, and you get what you pay for. So the information's there. If this becomes a major part of your project, or after this class you really want to do some more industry research on a certain area, let me know, because there's a much more robust version of Hoovers. But even just what you've got here, great resource for doing basic research. And for the quiz, knowing the fact that that is one of the sources of information is important, or one of the places you can go to get industry information. So in addition to that, going back to the PowerPoint again, industry associations, whether you find that by looking at the list of websites from Hoovers, or you just go into Google and type in industry association and trucking or transportation, or non-medical non-emergency medical transportation. I'm sure there's, Rainier, maybe you already know, I'm sure there's an industry association just for non-emergency medical transportation. Do you know what it is, or?
Looking at industry,
Uh-huh.
I didn't go into that deep because I just base it on my experience. So
I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere out there there's like the association of value-added like medical transportation professionals, and it's like
there's actually a site where all the companies would sign up, and then it's a resource.
yeah. So, like if you know about that site already, good place to go to find information about competitors and stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's other small associations like that out there as well that you may not even know about yet. But anyway, there's always good information here for finding industry associations. And then finally, I've got a link here. I went past it briefly before. I want to like pause on it a little bit more in this class because some of this stuff is going to be on your quiz. There's a great page on Google here about different ways to like really find a needle in a haystack with your search on Google. And the same thing happened a lot. Why does it do that? Hang on. I wonder if I can. Okay, I'm gonna have to track down the new location of this page for you guys. It's moved since last spring.
Try searching Google Inside Search.
Huh? Where?
Using Google.
Like in the search window? Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is some of the information. Let me unfortunately, every 3 months, 6 months, whatever, Google rearranges at times where they like host their help information. So let me make a note to myself to actually update for this class the links to where to find some of the search operators, and then I'll tell you specifically what I have on the quiz. Update link to Google search operator tips. So very specifically, there's two things that I'd like to call your attention to. If you want to search, if you want to use Google to search within a certain company's website, did I mention like this is possible, or did I mention that in the 490 class? So if I wanted to search just in let me think of an example here. Here, do we still have the search results there? Yeah. Let's actually use what we already had here as an example. So if we go down associations, so American Society of Transportation and Logistics. Or trucking, this is even easier. So trucking.org. So if we now want to go into, if we just want to look for information within the trucking.org website, like there's a way to do that in Google. So you just go in and you type, so let's say we wanted to find, and this is kind of leading into the second lecture too, but I want to make sure to specifically point out this about Google searches. If I wanted to find out like good ways to like cheap maintenance sources or good third-party maintenance suppliers, and I wanted to see where that was referred to in the industry association website, I'd put in maintenance and then a space, and I would type in site : www. I said it was trucking.org, right? So is that right? Yeah. So whatever word it is that you want to search for, and then a space, and the phrase site : and then the name of the website. Yep. And instead of every possible page on the internet that has the word maintenance in it, this just finds pages within that website that have the word maintenance in them somewhere. So if I wanted to narrow that down further to maybe maintenance vendors, type that in and enter. So there, we just got 34 pages that somehow have maintenance and vendor in them. Now, if I wanted the two of those words together, I could put maintenance vendor in quotes, and that's too specific. So nowhere in there does it specifically refer to a maintenance vendor. But if I go back to maintenance and site, and then maybe company, and it doesn't narrow it down as much as vendors. So this is one way to do that. The important thing for the quiz is that operator. So whatever the search term is, space, site : and whatever site you want to search in. That's the first thing I wanted to point your attention to. That used to be really nicely listed in that little link. Google has moved the link since last spring, so for your projects, I'll get back to you with a new reference sheet that has the correct locations. That operator ability is important for the quiz. The other one, you notice here at the top of, do you ever notice like there's always a title that, like usually at least, there's a title at the top of the page in the little tab in whatever page on the internet you go to. So American Trucking Association, what we do. So usually all of these say American Truck, like for this website, most of them say American Trucking Association on them. Sometimes when you drill down into, so that's probably going to take us to the Austrian, like basically the Austrian post office website. No, it actually takes us to a profile for that. So depending on where you go, every website has a little title here at the top that says basically what the page is about. That can also help you narrow down your searches in Google a lot. So another useful operator for finding best practice information, industry information, is just to type. So if we just wanted to find pages that are specifically about maintenance, vendor, and transportation, we're going to type in title : like that. And that'll give us pages where the word maintenance is actually in the title somewhere. The title of the page. So if we wanted to narrow that down further, actually that only gives us, that'll only search on the word maintenance. So if we also wanted those other phrases, we're going to have to put in title before each of them. So the title of the page is going to have one of those three words in it. So two useful operators to narrow down your searches a bit. Those are going to be in the quiz. Without wasting too much more time here, I'll get back to the rest of the slides, but from the information sources here, there were a couple of specific things that I wanted you to know how to do. And to link this back to why it's important for small business management, being able to go through whether it's big database, big companies that like put together fancy reports, or whether it's simply using Google and knowing how to like tweak the search terms to find what you want. Like most small business managers like have a great need for information in order to make better decisions and in order to find better ways to do things, save money, find more customers, etc. They have a big need for information and a very big shortage of time and money. So anytime you can quickly and efficiently go through and find a needle in a haystack with the internet searches about industry, about best practices, it's a very useful skill set. So the bigger picture here about all those operators and different sources of information is how to go out and find value-added information about, first of all, industry, and then the second half of the lecture today is on best practices, which I'll get to next. But this page here is on the sources of information for that. Porter's 5 forces, I talked about a little bit before. The inside of this circle. So driving forces that change an industry are out here. This little structure here is called Porter's 5 forces. It was invented by a guy named Michael Porter. It's a professor at Harvard, and it's basically it's a standard way of looking at the structure of any industry. So it's got 5 elements to it: supplier power, buyer power, like substitute products, the threat of new entrants, and rivalry between firms. So if we go down here, these five categories are another question on the quiz. So like know what these 5 like forces are. One of them is buyer power, one is supplier power, one is the threat of new entrants, one is the threat of substitutes, and one is the threat or is rivalry basically among firms. Point of all this for small business management is being able to, again, find useful information about an industry. There's some great reports out there about the structure of most industries that you could be interested in that you also have access to through database subscriptions here at Cal State. So for the quiz, knowing this slide here is important. In the bigger picture of why this is important for small business management, again, by keying in on Porter's 5 forces, it allows you to find reports that have a bunch of other information in them as well. But it also is it's particularly useful when you're looking at either expanding from one niche of your business into another business. If you're actually looking at starting a new business, it's particularly good to take a look at the structure of an industry you're getting into before you get into it. And then finally, just to remind yourself as a small business owner, like, look, it basically, if we look at the example of these forces in, if we look at an example of these forces in the financial services industry, which there's not a lot of, there's no project in this class for financial services right now, but it's a common one that I've had in this class before. and it's a good illustration of the concept. So, like, if you are basically an investment advisor, it's important for you to know, like, which directions are going to be a useful investment of your time in trying to grow your business, and which ones are going to be a non-starter from the beginning. And just keeping these basic parameters in mind is important. Like, knowing whether your buyers have power or not is the first thing that's important. So, that's usually related to how many of them there are. It's either related to how many of them there are, or how easy it is for them to switch from you to somebody else. And when it comes to investment advising, buyers don't really have that much power because there's so many of them. I mean, everybody with over a certain basic income level has some need for investment advice. There's too many buyers for any one of them to have any particular power. They do have a little bit of power, however, because it's pretty easy. You know, I have an investment advisor, like a financial advisor that I use back in Cincinnati, and I get approached by other ones all the time, and like, there's really nothing stopping me from investing with anybody else. Like, all I have to do is say, okay, like, here's some money for you too. Like, it's pretty easy to switch, so that raises buyer costs a little bit. It's important that you know, basically, that there are a whole lot of buyers, so don't worry too much about, like, pleasing any one particular buyer because they don't have that much power, but make sure that you're trying to find ways to make it more inconvenient to switch from you, because that's the thing that does give buyers power. And then supplier power. There's a moderate amount of supplier power just because if you look at the number of companies that offer investment vehicles, whether it's investment instruments, whether it's insurance or access to certain stock markets or whatever, there's less suppliers of financial instruments than there are representatives of those instruments. So there's a little bit more power there, so on and so forth. Without getting too tied up here, reason it's important to know this is to know what is and isn't possible in your industry and to assess the relative attractiveness of in different industries. For the quiz, knowing what these categories are is important. Good source for information on Porter's Five Forces, besides just going to Google. Google's amazing for pretty much anything. Business Source Premier is a database we have access to here at Cal State. Unfortunately, that link doesn't work anymore, so we'll go directly to the library website. And just go to databases by name and click on Business Source Premier. Go to Industry Profiles, that little tab on the right-hand side, and then you can browse for the name of the industry. So if I go back to music as an example, music and video industry profile for pretty much every country in the world, and there's also a global profile if you scroll down a little bit. So these are not just important because they have a nice report about Porter's Five Forces in the music business. They're also interesting because they have 30 pages of other information that's interesting about the music business. So another great additional source of information about the industry in general, which is value added for small business owners to know. You go through here, click on that little text link, and then open up the PDF document, and you'll notice 38 pages worth of information about the music and video market around the world. So similar kinds of stuff. The total value of the markets, where investment advisors think it's going, some information about major categories within the market. There's a Five Forces analysis for Porter's Five Forces, some information on some of the leading companies in the business, all kinds of useful information. So another good resource for doing industry research. That is it for the industry research slide. So basically, the things that I wanted to make sure you got out of there are, what are the 5 forces? So what are Porter's 5 forces? Where do you go to search for information on Porter's 5 forces? And that's in this last slide here. Let's see here, what else did I have in there? Where do you search for driving forces information? So earlier, I talked about driving forces, and then I gave you some sources of where to look for that information. That's going to be in there. And then, what are the things that are important to assess when you're deciding what's an important driving force? So this slide here is also got some important information to consider. Just pointing that stuff out to you. Big picture for the projects. The reason this is important is because, like, the information contained in these reports is useful to help small business managers make better decisions within a short amount of time. The skill set of being able to go out and do searches to identify, little cherry-picked information that's going to be value added, that is a useful skill which will make you employable as a small business free agent, and also to the extent that you're running your own business, the faster you're able to get that stuff done, the more you're able to take advantage of the information and not have to waste your time from other activities that you're also having to do as a small business owner. So that's that. The second presentation for our lecture today is on best practices research. And here, so big picture, the reason this is important, this is the one area I think where I didn't have any of the teams do a project last spring, but it's a really important project area that if I can find a way to make at least one of the projects in this room partially focused on this, it'll be great, because I don't have a project example of it yet, and it's a really useful thing that I've had for other projects in the past. So basically, this is better ways to do things within the company on a day-to-day basis. Like the same way that looking at industry report information is useful even for somebody that already knows the industry well, to kind of remind them about trends that are more important than they may have thought about, or just point out stuff that they had not noticed. It's also, despite how good you may be at like recruiting people or knowing knowing how to find good talented staff, or knowing how to motivate people, knowing what like all the different types of compensation plans are for different small businesses around the region that are your competitors for labor. Knowing better ways to do things is going to help to reduce costs. But again, having the time and the ability to find a needle in a haystack and go out and find useful value-added information in a short period of time is the useful skill here. So, first of all, useful for your quiz and in general. Like, what are the main things to think about in? Yes, Paige.
Can you make it bigger?
Yes. Actually, why don't I go to? How's that? Okay. So, when you're planning HR for any small business, like the things you want to keep in mind are like who are the key personnel who are most important. So, depending on what the nature of the business is, you may absolutely have to have one person that runs operations and one person that's out like looking for funding and investments. You might have like one person that's like largely the marketing and salesperson, and one person does ops. Each business is different, but you need to know, these are the 3 people that are the 3 types of people that we absolutely can't do without in this business. Beyond that, it's always important to have some sort of board of advisors or group of people who have been there and done that, that you can talk to and get advice from. Depending on depending on the size of the business and where you want to go and your goals with funding, boards can give you legitimacy when you're going to search for investors or loans. They can also connect you with new customers, new partners, and so forth. Just very important to have some sort of group of people who have been there and done that before you to give you advice. And then finally, think realistically about what each person can do. Like, I think this is one of the biggest reasons why, like, my two companies are sort of inactive, and I'm now like here teaching you guys rather than running them still. It's because I was too ambitious and I wasn't realistic about what I could do and what each person that I hired could do. Like, it's great that you have all this like energy and enthusiasm and think that you can leap tall buildings in a single bound. Like, it's much more important to plan realistically. Like, if like, if I just take my day here as an example, I'm not a morning person, so I tend to like go to sleep around midnight, 1 o'clock, maybe even 2 or 3, depending on the day. My day starts around 10 or so. My office hours are at 11:30, so I'm getting a few things done around 11 noon. Then I teach from 12:45 to 3. Then I got office hours again, teach again from 5:15 to 7:20 in this class, and then I've got maybe another hour or two of like useful, productive window, and then if I'm still going to get my workout in, like I'm done. Like I need downtime and personal time for the rest of the end of the day. Sometimes I can get more work done, but I've learned over the course of time that on Mondays and Wednesdays, like I can get things that I can do in 10 minutes or less are things that I should put on the calendar for Mondays or Wednesdays. If it's an in-depth project, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between this thing and that thing. People are going to come by my office. Like, I'm not going to be able to focus on a project that needs in-depth concentration. I've just learned that over the course of time with my own schedule. I've also learned that I will never get around. I will never get around to like planning. I will never get around to like organizing my like financial planning. So it's best that I have a financial advisor. Like, it just won't happen if I'm responsible for it. I'm more excited about 10,000 other things than like making sure that I put this money aside and earn like 7% instead of 5%. I don't care. Like, I'm more interested in like the project that I'm working on, not what the money's earning. So just knowing how much energy and time you have, how much work is going to be needed, and what the expertise is. Be realistic about like how many people you need and what skill set you need. So know who the key personnel are. Have access to some sort of board of advisors, and be realistic in your planning. The three like major tenets of small business HR management. I've listed a few outsourcing vendors here for you, which is not on your quiz, but I think is useful. Just depending, each of these is slightly different, but you can go to almost any of these and find somebody who's willing to work on projects that are billed by the hour from anywhere from $5 and up. And you'd be surprised if you're specific about what you need done. You'd be surprised like how many things you can find someone else to do. And the Market Driver, my second company, like I assumed that I would do it all. You know, I'll make all the phone calls. I'll send all the emails. I'll look at every single like new project and like figure out exactly where we're going to find the leads. Like, if I could just copy and clone myself, it's fine. But I can't. So, like, I should have been thinking, okay, what is every possible thing that I don't need to be doing? Like this, no one else can do. But you know, organizing the like customer data in the database. Actually, I don't need to be farting around with that. I could like have scope out the project, send all the data, and pay somebody $100 for you know, 10 hours worth of billable work at $10 an hour, and have it done, and I don't have to deal with it. So this is a good list of places where you can find hourly labor at affordable rates, and they're all like dispersed. You know, you don't have to worry about like paying payroll taxes. You don't have to worry about bureaucracy. Just find a project and figure out how many hours it will take for somebody to get it done who is of a reasonable skill set but not an expert, and good like resources there to find people to do stuff whenever possible. If it's something that you are not required to do, or you know, the manager of the business, the core like key personnel of the business, if it's not something they have to do, think about ways that it could be contracted out. This is a like nice little chart from the textbook that I use for my business strategy class, the 490 senior seminar. Like in general, there's 8 areas of sort of how major things that are important in managerial execution. I think 4 that are particularly useful and easy to search on that small business owners can use, sort of cherry-picked bullet points on better ways to build a better mousetrap, is on ways to find talented people. I mean, if anytime somebody can give me a dependable source of people willing to work for somewhere between $15 and $30 an hour, who are competent and professional and relatively smart, I always want to know about that. I mean, it's so hard to find the people in this class. It's hard enough to like. It may seem like it shouldn't be that hard, but anytime you can find a dependable source of talent, even if even if it's people who are sort of passing through from one thing to the next in their careers, and over the course of one summer might be available for 10 hours a week and willing to bill that time at $15 to $30 an hour. As long as they're smart and competent and able to understand instructions and quickly get things done, I always am looking for that kind of talent source, and pretty much any other small business owner is too. So anything you can do to help sort of have a cherry-picked bullet point list here, five places to go to find like competent, talented people for between $20 and $30 an hour. Always useful. Different ways that other companies are rewarding and incenting employees, always useful. Knowing what software and hardware systems other small businesses are using, or just better ways, new types of software and hardware that can, I mean, I think as I continue to like go forward with my new like life and career here as a professor, let alone like the side business projects that I eventually may like get rolling again. If I think the first thing that I will pay for, I will probably put aside 20 to 30 bucks per hour times 20 hours is, 20 times 20 is 400, right? So Yeah, I'd probably peel off $1,000 a month and just earmark it for paying someone to solve technology problems for me and find better ways to do things, both with hardware and software. Like $1,000 would be like 10 hours a week every week, and like I think 15 hours a week on 2 other weeks. So it's enough that I can get some time, but I can't like afford to pay somebody full time. But I would immediately peel off as soon as I got just a little bit more money coming in. I would peel that off, and I would hire somebody to just do something similar to what Richard's business is right now. You know, just identify, both solve hardware and software problems that I have right now, and just look at what I'm doing and find better ways to do it. Like I am so inefficient in some of the ways that I use hardware and software, I'm sure, but I don't have time to figure out a better way to do it. I know how it works for me, and I continue doing it, even though it's woefully inefficient. So knowing how to go out and quickly find a needle in a haystack about better ways to do things with hardware and software, always useful. And then just good stories about other small business owners and what they're doing to solve problems in their businesses, to lead and inspire employees. Just areas that are good to know how to find best practices in. Useful, important for your quiz, knowing where to find these things. So ProQuest, LexisNexis, Wilson OmniFile are 3 different databases that we have a subscription to in our library, where you can just go out and do searches on various terms, like I said before. So if you wanted to find information about, let's go to ProQuest here as an example. If we want to search on like hiring and so some information about hiring veterans. It's a lot of times you just need to browse down and see what article might have interesting information in. So some information here about like retaining good drivers, best practices in hiring. So these are the sources that you would go to find information on best practices in each of these areas. ProQuest, LexisNexis, Wilson OmniFile. Industry associations are always a good source. And then, again, I will get you an updated link on Google search operators. Like I said before, and I'll reiterate again now, knowing where to find things. So this slide right here, important for your quiz. Knowing how to use that cite colon operator in Google. So, going back and searching just on, so what did we say? So if we wanted to do hiring best practices and cite So the operator that you want is site colon and the name of whatever site you're looking for. And then the other one was this in title operator. So if you want to find pages that have a particular word in the title of that page, you type in title colon and then whatever word you're looking for in the title. Those are important to know. Moving on, I think that's the things I wanted to make sure to cover for the quiz from that. Going back to like best practices here for management and information. Intellectual property. We talked a little bit about patents, copyrights, trademarks, and so forth already. This used to be part of another presentation, so we'll go past the patents and trademark stuff. That is a bit new. But that is now covered in something else. Like when I used to do an older version of this class, it was covered in here rather than a separate thing on copyrights. Some useful information about insurance here, not important for the quiz. What is sort of useful and important, I'll go back to the contract slide in a second. What is useful and important is like this page right here. How many people in here are familiar with LegalZoom? How about Nolo or Rocket Lawyer? Again, I will give you an updated link for the Google search tips. Basically, these are 3 websites that have kind of do-it-yourself information on legal advice, and they also have like cheap, like if you need to find a patent attorney, for example, they will point you to somebody that bills $40 or $50 an hour, not $200. There's a bunch of ways to actually contract legal services, like on an a la carte basis for affordable rates at these websites. Also, you can just go in and kind of do your own do-it-yourself homework and find out a lot of what you need to know about legal and contract issues just by going to one of these 3 sites. So knowing that those 3 sites plus Google are sources of information for best practices and how to do various legal and contract issues is important for your quiz. And then finally, not on your quiz, but something that I've brought to the table a little bit in this class that I think it may not be immediately relevant for your projects here, like probably more so for some of them than others, but especially in my music licensing business, I mean, my job was to negotiate licensing contracts. So, like, there's a couple of basic types of contract format that, like, without having to pay a lawyer a lot of money and without having to like get overly lost in the details, there's some basic ways to document either like working arrangements with other partners in your business so that you're reasonably protected that somebody's not going to rip off your ideas. It's not perfect, but it's a basic way to document things so that everybody's kind of honest and legit. And then anytime you find a new customer, new other business as a partner as opposed to individuals who are working with you, a basic framework for documenting any contract between like customer A and company B. I've got 2 templates that I've provided for you guys that you're welcome to use as a like starting point for developing your own contracts, whether it's for projects in this class or sometime later when you need to put together a non-disclosure agreement with other individuals you're working with to make sure nobody rips off your idea. It's a basic form you can use. When land your first customer for some new project, and you're like, how the hell do I sign a contract with this customer? What do I use? You can use one of these as well. So, in general, when doing contracts, and you're not a lawyer, and I am certainly not a lawyer, but I've done a lot of contracts with different customers, partners, and so forth over time. You want to start with some kind of a template. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing with contracts. I didn't know what I was doing to begin with, but I knew that somebody else knew what they were doing, and if I just take what they already used and then fill in the blanks with my information, probably I'm on the right trail. So you want to start with some kind of template, and as long as it's got a basic official looking structure to it, make sure that you get in the contract what you know needs to be there. So if it's a non-disclosure agreement, somewhere you need to document, like, you know, whoever is signing this agrees not to profit from the knowledge they gain from the project without the prior written consent of the owner named X, you know? Or we know that you don't want to tell third parties about the information. So we got to have something in there about you will not further disclose any of the information discussed within this project to anyone except for the following names. Like, there's stuff that you know without being an expert that needs to be in there. Make sure that it gets in there somehow. And then you're just going to kind of take boilerplate from a distinct. It's amazing by going to Nolo, Rocket Lawyer, LegalZoom, and just going through Google and searching on. It's amazing how many boring, completely dry copies of contracts you can find by searching Google. If you find one that's similar to what you wanted to do, you can copy and paste some of the boilerplate out of that and go from there. That's not on your quiz, but it's really useful for getting things done once you find somebody that's really willing to work with you on a project, and making sure that you don't get ripped off by them, or finding some basic way to document a great new like customer or like joint venture business without having to get tied up in, oh my God, how do we move forward? What's the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it? Some basic ways to get moving forward with either new customers or new partners for your business. So moving out of there and into Blackboard again for a second, I've got two things in here. One is a basic non-disclosure agreement. I used this originally, like I had a project back in Cincinnati where one of my students was interested in the sports management business, and I know a guy that is like director. He's the head. He's like a strategic planning person for the Miami Dolphins. So, like, one of the problems with doing any kind of like research on sports teams is that they're all privately owned. So, like, the Miami Dolphins don't have to tell anybody a damn thing about like how much their revenues are, or how much their profits are, how much their costs. They don't have to say anything. So, but they have all that information, and I wanted the students to be able to do a project with the real information about the costs and revenues of the Dolphins rather than having to guess. So they signed this agreement so they have access to the information and promise not to tell anybody else what it is. So a basic example of how to do a non-disclosure agreement is here for your use as a template. That was the original. Obviously, take out name Victoria Bryant, put in whatever name is relevant. Take out Miami Dolphins, put in whoever the other agreement party in the agreement is. So, Jing, for example, if you were like signing basic NDAs with the rest of the people on the team, like the other four members' names go there, you go there. Most of the rest of this covers the major issues that might come up in disagreements about somebody ripping off your ideas. And then just repeat it again down here. The name of the person who is being let in on inside information, and then the information of the person who's disclosing that information. This works pretty well for any working agreement between the two individuals, and if you need to you need to designate some more stuff about compensation or what happens if like something takes off, it's pretty easy to add a paragraph and say, you know, if this takes off, then, you know, person X has the right to, you know, 1% of the proceeds if they go forward and pay, you know, go forward and pay a, you know, $5,000 like entrance fee into ownership of stock before December 31st of 2016. You know, it's pretty easy to go in and alter this to add more clauses if you need. And then the other example that I've put in here for you is it's a licensing contract that I used to use for my my music licensing company in Brazil. This was actually this is when I was still based in Germany before I moved to Brazil. This is the basic like third-party representation agreement between me and Toomey Music, which is my best customer. They were based in Bath, England. It's a like Cuban music specialty label. So the video that I played earlier today in 490, it's from this company. And even though this is basically a contract about me going out and selling, like I represent them and close deals. If I close a deal for licensing rights to their music, this designates like the fact that I have the right to do that, how much I get paid, so forth and so on. It's actually got my old account information for my Citibank account in Germany. Please don't use that. That account's closed now anyway. But you know, this is a basic. It's a basic. Even if the deal was actually like, if the deal were, if we go to the crowdfunding example, if part of the crowdfunding project was that, you know, somebody's going to come in and like somebody's going to provide $1,000 of investment, and after they like click yes, I'm going to like provide the funding. Then, you know, their options as the exit strategy are either, you know, 10,000 frequent flyer miles or a 0.05% stake in the company, or I don't know, a trip to Brazil, whichever of the three you prefer. And like it's the company's discretion which of the three they provide. So we get $1,000, and then by this date, you will either get 10,000 frequent flyer miles, a free ticket to Brazil, or 0.05% stock in our company. And even though that has nothing to do with intellectual property licensing, you can use the basic structure here, change the paragraphs, and put together what would end up being the little disclaimer. So you know how like there's 2 pages worth of like fine print and agree to terms and conditions before clicking yes, I want to invest. You would use this for your terms and conditions. Basic template that most of you can use as soon as you have any kind of transaction between 2 companies you have to document, and just change the paragraphs so that they're about the relevant information that you need to talk about. That is what I wanted to go over for today's lecture. The only other thing before calling it a day is going back and pointing out a few things about last week's lectures that I may have like gone over quickly that are going to be on the quiz, because there were certain things last week that were particularly important for me to underline to you guys. They are not necessarily the things that were on the quiz, because I made the quiz 6 months ago. So last thing before we call it a day, if we go back to the information section of Blackboard and scroll down, you'll see Toolbox Learning Retention Study Guide. If you open that up, this is, I mean, pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So there's 27 bullet points here, and there's 30 questions in the test, which basically means there's going to be one question about each of these things in the quiz, and a couple of them are going to have 2 questions about the same topic. So when it comes to web development, I'm going to point out right now, because if you're using Apple, or you're using a more like a different like keyboard system or whatever, it's going to be different. Like control function print screen, and then opening Paint and hitting Control V. Like that is at approximately the 1.5 hour mark in this podcast, in case you want to go back and like hear where it was. That is the answer that I wanted for how to do a screenshot. Okay, that's a very specific answer. It's different depending on some of you, so I wanted to go ahead and give you the correct answer there. There is going to be a question about how to edit text in the Wix website. So pretty much when it comes to Wix, remember that by just left clicking, the regular left click in Wix pretty much allows you to do anything you want in their object-oriented world. When you want to create a new file in Dreamweaver, remember I went through Dreamweaver, but I wasn't able to record that part of the podcast because I had to do it on the laptop. You're basically going to click on Dreamweaver site. You're going to give the site some kind of name and a folder destination locally, and then you're going to basically input information for FTP address, username, password, root directory. Like that information that I went over, which I've talked about verbally in this podcast, and I think one other one. You don't actually have it on the screen. So again, like we started class at 5:15, it's 6:50, so basically 1 hour and 25, 35, 40, the 1 hour 35 minute mark or so. Like I would suggest to all of you going into this podcast and checking on a few pieces of information that I wanted to make sure are clear for the quiz. So that's the next thing. Uploading a single file to a website from Dreamweaver, you basically want to select the file that you want to upload and then click the little like up arrow to put that file into the internet. So you remember I went through Dreamweaver briefly and showed you that if you've got a particular file that you wanted to upload to an existing website, you just choose the file on the right-hand side, and then right above that is a little up arrow. Click on that, and that's going to put the file into the internet. There's a question on the quiz about that, so I've warned you about that as well. Going back to this sheet again quick. Product service event. So there's going to be a question about the slides that I had on the various like websites and sources that you can find for doing patent applications. Same thing for doing trademark applications. So I showed you guys where to find different information for patent searches and for trademark searches. Those links to those websites are going to be important to know. There's going to be a question about copyrights in general, so make sure that you review the slide on copyrights. Make sure that you know what the major elements of a customer vignette is, and in that, like, we're talking. If you go back to the slides, you go back to the podcast. We're talking about the big bullet point sections of the PowerPoint. Same thing for a product service vignette. What are the major elements? There's going to be one question about the sales slides that I talked to you guys a little bit about. So the rule of 10 and making sure that you manage things in a pyramid and not taking rejection personally. That slide. There's going to be one question about that stuff. There's going to be a couple of. There's going to be. It's going to be a question about what are the basic types of short-term guerrilla marketing materials. So you remember I went through and talked about slides where we talked about more expensive types of advertising media that we have to buy in bulk, like TV, radio, and so forth. And then we had guerrilla marketing, which was basically word of mouth and street promo, or pro posters and stuff like that.
Try the last one.
What's that?
The next time it comes up, we'll try the last one. It says,
Oh, okay.
show it, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So instead of clicking the X, I'm going to click the last at the bottom. Okay. So there's going to be a question about that, which are the guerrilla ones, the cheap ones, and then same thing. What are the major elements of a competitor profile? So that you've got a slide that has like an example of a competitor profile. What are the major sections of that slide? How and where do you find competitive information? The basics of a good market positioning map. So things I said about having differentiable axes and having things that are not obvious. Those are the major elements that are going to be on the quiz. So I ran through a lot of stuff and focused on things that at the time were important for me to focus on in the lecture. I wanted to make sure to loop back for you guys today and give you a heads up on what from last week is going to be covered in the quiz. And I already went over what's going to be covered from today in the quiz. Cool. Now I have a chance to take Richard's advice. Keep it and leave me alone, right? And that's pretty much it for today. So on Thursday,
Wednesday?
what's that?
Wednesday?
Yeah, sorry, Wednesday. This class used to be Tuesday, Thursday. On Wednesday, we'll go through the last two elements, which are the financial side of things, basic accounting and financial projections, and then looking for resources and investors. Then the following Monday, you'll take the quiz and fill out the continuous improvement stuff, and then we will kick off with the project. So just to reiterate to you guys, thank you very much for putting together all the LinkedIn and professional development profile stuff. I will get as far as I can on it this weekend, and whatever I don't get to, the following weekend. You don't have to do anything on it until I get back to you, and then as soon as I do, you have till the rest of the quarter to make the edits. I'll try to get to it as soon as I can so that you get the most value out of my comments. See you guys on Wednesday.